So I found this clip and I think it's pretty interesting. We all understand that some of the things that we get from our past generations are even still relevant today. In addition to that, though they may not still be exactly relevant, we can still learn from the past, right? The downside is some of the mistakes of our past are still repeating themselves to this day. And so I found this clip pretty important, and I wanted to just talk about this with you guys just a little bit.
To tell you that I'm worried about America. Yeah, I'm worried about our nation because it's sick with racism still. Just think about the fact that we live in a nation which was founded on the principle that all men are created equal. And yet men are still arguing over whether the color of a man's skin determines the content of his character. And I believe that the Lord told me to say to the United States of America that is sick with militarism and is sick.
So I think this is relevant because as of we're still seeing what's going on with the LA riots and other rioting around the country. And we're supposed to be having some more riotings coming up for the 4th of July. That entire weekend, there's supposed to be another round of No Kings protests that'll be going on then. And with that, you know that our president has said that he intends to, militarize, and use the military to get a rein on wayward public people that are choosing to protest and boycott and things like that. And so I think that's relevant to this day. That's something to be considered, as well as what he said about racism. Now, you would think this is back in 1967. Here we are in 2025. We're like 60 years later. This is like 60 years later, and we're still dealing with the same level of racism. It's just now there are more laws that are being activated that racists' policies and activities cannot be. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Those activities cannot be along the same levels as they were back in 67. And so now those racist behaviors are having to, be curtailed, and they're having to be redirected in another way. But they're still prevalent. They're still here. They're still happening. And the sad part to me is that I feel that if we weren't so focused on the color of someone's skin, the texture of someone's hair, if we weren't focused on those kinds of stupid things, we could be so much more further advanced as a human race. We could be so much further advanced in taking care of our planet. We could be so much further advanced in taking care of, in taking care of our fellow man, in diseases, and in ailments and things like that. We could be so much further advanced in so many things if we weren't so focused on the stupid and small stuff.
With excessive materialism. Have you ever thought about it? There are between 38 and 50 million people in the United States of America who are poverty-stricken, making income less than the poverty level.
Okay, so as of The most recent polls that we can get, which is 2023, the number is 42.8 million in the United States that are poverty stricken, according to congress.gov. Of those, 36.8 million of those persons are below the poverty line, according to the Census Bureau.
And yet, this is the richest nation in the history of the world. Our national gross product this year will go beyond $800 billion.
All right, so I stop you there. As far as the most recent that we can get is the first quarter of 2025, and our GNP, or gross national product, is $30.025 trillion, according to AIO Review, of course, and Y Charts.
And yet there are between 38 and 50 million people who are poverty stricken. Now, something wrong. A lot of people are afraid to say it. But I don't mind saying it. You see, somebody said to me the other night, don't you think, Dr. King, you are going to have to start speaking more in terms of the administration's policy? Because since you started talking against the war in Vietnam, it's hurt the budget of your organization, and people who once respected you don't respect you anymore. And I had to look over and say, so I'm sorry, but you don't know me.
See, there were a lot of people that did demonstrations against the war in Vietnam. There were a lot of people that were against the war in Vietnam, but there were a lot of people that are, America, right? And therefore, whatever war, our administration is for. And so the administration say, we're going to go over here and fight in Vietnam. Well, hey, they're all for it. If, and the other people are against it, then there are some that are against it. If MLK was speaking against it, well, then there were a lot of people that could have been contributing to his, that were contributing to him, that did not appreciate the fact that he was speaking against the Vietnam War. Now, you consider back then you had the Vietnam War that he was speaking against, and now you have people that are really upset about what was going on with the Israel, particularly that Donald Trump recently did a bomb on Iran in reference to what's going on with Israel and Iran. So there are a lot of people that are strongly against what he's doing there, and his stance on the entire thing. So it's like, it doesn't matter what year you're in 1967, 2025, we're still in some form of war. Bush W had us in a 20-year war. We got out of that. We've been out of that for 3 years, and now we're like roped into another one. It's like we just can't be about peace. It's almost like we love the drama of it all, I just don't understand why we can't just be about peace.
I'm not a consensus leader. I don't determine what is right and wrong by looking at the budget of my organization, and I don't determine what is right and wrong by taking a Gallup poll of the majority opinion. Which is hilarious, because
That's pretty much what what determines a lot of things these days. What's gonna allow me to gain more money? How can I get more money from this? It's not so much as about the people anymore. What's best for the public? What's best for our citizens? It's what's gonna get me the most money. And what gets me the most money is what makes some of our contributors or our donors, our most highest donors, happy. So if our most highest contributing donors are, are happy with the supremacy narrative, then that's what we go with. If they're happy with the war and us and our involvement in any war, then that's what we go with. It's like they constantly are involving themselves and looking at these, their popularity polls and, and what people think about this and that. And they're looking at that constantly because they have to see how the public feels about this, because if the public or if our highest contributors are feeling happy about this that we're doing, then we're gonna keep going in that direction. And I don't necessarily think that all of the highest contributing donors have the best interest of the people at heart. They have the best interest of themselves and their national average, what makes them the best money, what looks better on their pocket, their wallet, and their bank accounts, and what works best for them and their wealthy and elite friends, which, that's 1% of us. The rest of us are like struggling here, So, I don't know. I think I found this interesting because the numbers say a lot. It seems as though our poverty level numbers have increased dramatically. Our GNP has increased dramatically since 1967. Yet we're still looking at people that are very much white supremacists, at people that strongly don't care about persons that are below the poverty line, about the poor, about the public, about our citizens. We're still looking at a lot of this. You would think since 1967 the numbers would have gotten much better, because we would have found a way to what works. We would have found what works and how to improve based on what does work. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Things have just only gotten worse and worse since 67. We are at 30.025 trillion as of this year when it comes to our gross national product. We are at 42.8 million as of 2023. I'm sure that as of 2024 it was higher. But as of 2023, which was the most recent that we could get, our poverty-stricken citizens, the number is we have 42.8 million of our citizens in the United States that are poverty-stricken. Of those, 36.8 million of those are below the poverty line, below it.
And so because there's something wrong, our struggle must continue. And what we must see is that our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. I'm going to be honest enough to tell you that I'm worried about America.
So, in 67, we had riots. I think those were the Watts riots, if I'm not mistaken, in 67. But we were having riots back then as we're having some rioting today. We're having, in reference to the immigration and things like that, which was where it began, and with what our administration is doing regarding deporting people without due process and sending them to I don't know where he's sending them. Guadalajara, Guatemala, Guyatan, hell, I don't know. But where he's sending them is not a great place and does not have a great history with prisoners. So we're sending our persons there and without due process. Last I heard, there was like 2 persons there that were actual United States citizens. They just happened to be of Hispanic heritage, and they ended up deporting them there too, that I'm aware of. And I'm sure there was, without due process, there was more than likely more than that. But unless you're a Hispanic person walking around with your birth certificate on your person at all times, if that's not the case for you, then who knows? Some ICE rolls up on you, they're throwing you in a truck, And it's sad to say that this is where we are, but this is where we are. So I understand why people are out there protesting. I don't agree with, condone in any way, co-sign at all rioting or looting. I don't, but when you have things like this that occur, you're going to have some bad actors, right? And, I strongly support law enforcement doing what they need to the bad actors. What I don't support is deporting people without due process. I don't support deporting United States citizens to somewhere they've more than likely never been, more than likely have no family or relatives there. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't support that at all. I do not support the fact that there are persons of color that are not immigrants, that are not of Hispanic heritage, that are simply out there to show solidarity. And those persons are being arrested much more frequent in many more numbers than anyone else out there. I'm trying to say that nicely, but hell, I guess I'll just say it. The black persons that are showing up out there to be in solidarity, those are all being arrested. And nobody's coming to their aid. Nobody's saying, hey, stop arresting them. Hey, don't do that. Oh, no, they're out here to help us. They're out here showing solidarity. Don't do that. No, nobody's coming to their aid, but they're being arrested. They are American citizens. So, of course, they're not being deported. Everybody knows they're not Hispanic, but they're out there showing solidarity, and they're being, pretty much all of them being arrested. It's sad. It's sad all around the board. Because, like I said, I don't support the deportation of immigrants without due process. I don't support looting, rioting at all. But something's got to change. Otherwise, in another 60 years, who knows where our GNP is going to be? Who knows how many poverty-stricken persons, how many citizens will have below the poverty level will have then